If you appreciate ultra-realistic mini crawlers, consider checking out this FMS FCX24M Land Rover Discovery Camel Trophy Edition. FMS does an excellent job with their ultra-realistic bodies, but how's the performance of this car? Well, in this review, we'll be finding out, as I'll be telling you about the exterior. We'll be looking under the body, we'll take it for a drive on my off-road course, and then I'll give it Marcus's marks. So, let's get into it. Hi everybody, and welcome to RC Galaxy Reviews. You might have heard of the FCX24, but FMS about 9 months ago released the FCX24M, which is a brand new platform. And I've had this car for about 4 months now, and I've decided that I should give this some time and tell you my opinion. So, let's jump right into it. To run with a battery, which is good for the price tag. And now, let's get into pricing. The FCX24M Land Rover Discovery Camel Trophy Edition has a price tag of $119 US, and it comes in one color, which is this yellowish with a two-tone black. It comes in 4 different models. This Discovery right here, it comes in a 2-door model, and then a Defender 110, which is a 4-door, and a 2-door version of that. Now, when I got this vehicle, I was pretty happy to see that it came with quite a lot of decals. Here at the front, like I said, this is an ultra scale vehicle. We have some lights that actually work, as I'll show you right now. You press a button, which I'll show you later, and the lights turn on. Down the side, we have some flags that I put on, and Camel Trophy right there. We also have a cockpit. There is no driver, but we have a steering wheel and a little screen. And if we come around to the rear, there's a spare tire and a additional ladder to get up to the top. Now here we have this accessory right here, but it is not usable. It's plastic, so it doesn't add too much weight, but because of the spare tire, the car is quite heavy on the body and definitely not a performance crawler. We do have some other accessories up here, which add to the ultra scale look that this car has to offer. Now for the tires, they are actually quite squishy, very soft, so when you are driving, it does squish nicely. We have these signature yellow wheels, which are nice to see, and I was considering changing the tires and tried many different ones, but I just couldn't help but keep these signature tires. I think they look absolutely incredible. Now the suspension has maybe 1 or 2 drops of oil, so they're not very damped, but they do create some nice soft suspensions on bumps. Okay, now to access the underbody, there is a Velcro that holds it in place, and it is pretty strong. It is glued on, and it keeps the body nice and secure. Here we have our ESC. It is version 4 from FMS. We have our Power Dash 15 motor right here, and it provides really good slow crawl. We have metal transmission gears and driveline, which is nice as well. And we have something called anti-transmission, which is what FMS uses. And that provides a great smooth ride because the drive shafts move counter-rotating, so the front moves opposite from the rear, which is nice to see as well. And here we have our transmission gear servo. Nicely strapped in, we have our 7.4 volt, 380 milliamp 2S LiPo battery. This runs for about 45 minutes is my experience, which is good enough for what I like to do. Very simple setup overall, and if I do a modification video, I'll make sure to share that with you. Now to turn the vehicle on, you push these 2 plugs together. We turn our transmitter to on, and then there's a white button right under here, which I'll show you right there. Push that, and the car turns on. It's a very simple and easy setup. Now let's flip the car over. Here we can see that we have our anti-transmission that is kind of bulging right here, which creates a really bad ground clearance. We also only have straight axles, which does add to the scale look, but in terms of performance, it definitely doesn't help, especially because of this bulging drive shaft right there. The ground clamps, I'm constantly bottoming out, and that is my most reason that I'm not a fan of this car when I am crawling, and I prefer trailing with this car. Here we have our 4-link our four-link suspension right there. So very, again, easy and simple setup. And now let's test the slow crawl. Let's quickly talk about this battery from the 118 scales. Now, some reviewers have said that this battery that is longer lasting fits in the FCX24M, and I have found that it does, but it's really compromised, and I definitely wouldn't try doing this. Now, this car does have a 2-speed transmission, which is nice to see on a 24 scale. And let's see, first gear, full speed. Definitely quite slow, but again, this is mostly for crawling, and the slow speed crawl in first gear. It's a tiny bit choppy, but again, pretty good for a 24 scale. And second speed gear, well, very quick. As you can see, I did drop my crawler test, but it is really good for some trails, and I did mention this in other videos. I love how FMS does give the 2-speed transmission on most models. It does give the best of both worlds. Now the drag brake, because the car's slow crawl is a tiny bit choppy at times, it's not super consistent, but for the most part it does a decent job. The approach and departure angles, aren't great because of this scale front kind of bar, and the rear is the departure angles. There is, as you can see, like kind of a level right there, and that affects the car quite a bit. Another thing to consider is that because of the top heavy body, going uphill and ascent aren't good in this vehicle, but it does of course have the really scale look, which some people are looking for. The body control, because of the very little oiled suspension, it leans quite a fair bit when turning on full speed, and sometimes it will roll over, but the body actually doesn't scratch too much. Some flaws that I've had in the past 3 to 4 months are just losing a windshield, and of course some scraping. I did add some brass weights to the front tires and wheels because the car is very not great when you are doing crawling, and mostly best as a trail truck. The steering angle is not great either. I wish FMS did give a better steering servo, but again, it is $119 US, which is not a bad price. Now let's take a look at the transmitter. Now for the transmitter, it is quite an easy and simple setup. We have channel 3, which is the 2-speed transmission adjustments, our off-on button, our throttle trim, which you can press it, and then it will drive by itself until you stop it, which is a nice feature if you want a consistent throttle. Now the steering trim is to adjust how much steering angle you want. You can make it less if you don't want as much steering angle. And then we have our bind button right there. So overall, very simple transmission, good for my hands, and I do like how it has a cushioned steering. Now, I hope you do enjoy the driving footage, and I'll see you back for Marcus's Marks. Our 44-degree ascent with the Land Rover Discovery. Slipping a little bit there, and the left wheel is lifting, and oh no! Let's try one more time. Yes! We made it. Let's do our 44-degree descent. Definitely again at its max limit, but the Land Rover Discovery passes. I quickly want to show you how responsive the steering is. You can see it's very quick to respond, and it wiggles a little bit, which is good. On high speeds at trails, it's actually pretty impressive, but sometimes it does wobble a little bit, and I rate it 9.5 out of 10. The question is, can we do a wheelie? Let's find out. Yes, we did a little one. This car was absolutely a blast to drive, and it was definitely worth the allergies that I now have. For exterior design, this car gets a score of 10 out of 10. I love the realistic look that it gives. I think that FMS did a great job recreating the Camel trophy color and the body style from the 1-to-1 ratio vehicle. For chassis design, it gets a score of 8 out of 10 because I feel like it's actually quite simple. I haven't modified it yet, but I feel like everything is very nice and in a good place for modifications. For crawling capabilities, it gets a score of 7 out of 10. The straight axles compromise the vehicle, the bumper does too, and the ground clearance is not great. But on trails, this car absorbs the bumper really well. The tires are perfectly soft, and I think that it does a great job on trails. For the personal score, it gets a score of 9 out of 10. I love great, realistic vehicles, so this car is really good for me. I think this is the best 24 scale out there right now. Modifications I would do, I would add some grippier and sticky tires and some brass weight. There's only one really close competitor to this car, and that is the FCX24 from Axial. They have a Jeep Wrangler, which is similarly sized and similarly priced as well. But I think that this scale look is just what sets this car apart from all the other 24 scales. Now for the value score, it gets a score of 9 out of 10 because $119 US is really actually pretty good. Now you might be saying, well, the Redcat Ascent 18 is also in that price range, but this car has the next level amount of realism that the Redcat Ascent 18 does not have. Now, one thing that I would like to point out is the switch from first to second gear or second to first gear sometimes takes a while, so you'll be in first gear and then you switch to second gear and then it changes 5 to 6 seconds later, but that's not a deal breaker for me. It's just something to think about. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, share, and subscribe to my channel because next week we have our first basher video coming. And if you want to see the FCX24 Jeep Gladiator review that I did, click right here. Bye!